Hello everyone, this is Team Safari and my name is Igor. I will start presenting the project for the inventory app. I will speak a little bit about our design and wireframing. So as you can see, this is the main page for our inventory app, where you can observe like a welcome message and a navbar, as well as space for the avatar for the user to upload. This is also an active function, so like function button that when you press, you can return to the home page. And now I would like to speak a little bit about wireframes. So this is how we planned our application to look like as a final product, and I think we achieved this mission successfully. One of the biggest challenges as a team we had that instead of clicking on the item and have a drop down with the information, we would display it on the side of the screen. In this way, we felt that this is more user friendly, and the person can see the item and scroll through other items. So this is more convenient. This is it for me, and I'm gonna pass it to Lisel, who will speak more about backend and website functionality. Thank you.
Hello everyone, so I'm Lisel. I'm going to go into more of the functionality of the website. So as Yehor showed, this is the front page that loads. So it's the home page and it's rendered from app.js. So as you can see at the top here, we have a nav component, which is in the return statement right here. And then at the bottom, you see the welcome message. The welcome message is actually combined inside of a ternary. So sometimes it'll show the welcome message in this kind of main area. Sometimes, as you saw in the wireframe demo, it'll show the list items. So that's handled here. And then also here we have a form that shows up, and that's actually a functionality for one of the buttons we have here, which is the add item button that I'll show in a few moments. Here's the navbar component. So it just has the two buttons, the header, and then the user image. And yeah, these all have their own states. So that's how the buttons are able to toggle. When you click into a button, let's say view all, that's when item list gets rendered. So here's what item list is. Item list actually returns a map of items, which is their own component. So each of these little boxes is one item inside of an item list. So each item, of course, has a div, inside has the image and the title to keep it simple. Then when you click into it, that's when individual item is loaded on the right-hand side of the screen, and you'll see more about the selected image. So the title, description, price, and category, and also a larger image. You also have additional functionality to update the item or delete the item. Inside of the individual item, we have the async function for deleting an item. So what it does is send a delete request to the database, and then lets you know with an alert that it was deleted successfully. So I'll demo that right now. Delete this item. And here's the alert. You may refresh to see changes. So I'll refresh, and it should start with the solid gold item. And here we are. So it was successfully deleted from the list. And the other functionality is updating the item. And so that is handled in the update form. It also has a state on the button so that it toggles the form back and forth. So if you want to update it, it opens the form for you. And then you can start filling out the fields, and it collects what's being typed into the box, and that kind of updates the state of the item boxes. Once you hit this update new item, it'll send we have a function here for onSubmit. So it'll do everything in this function, which is send a put request to the database with the updated fields. So if I were a user filling this out, let's say I wanted this to be a gold leather jacket or something. Description, really great item. Price, this would be like a price that stands out to us, so we'll see the change. Great category. Okay, and then the image URL, I'm just gonna put google.com. And then one thing I wanna note is that if I don't fill in one of the fields, it'll actually prompt me to do that for each of the fields because they're required. So I'll just fill them in and then quickly submit the form. Hit update, and I get an alert that it was updated successfully, and you can refresh to see the changes. So now this should have the new data inside, and it does, has a new title, description, everything. And if I want to further update it, I can do the same functionality again. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this one. The last thing I want to show is the adding an item functionality. So up here at the top, it'll load the form and you can continue to add your items here. So let's see, gray scarf, and the description is really warm and cozy for the winter. The price, say $3 million for the scarf. Category is winter clothes, and the image URL, we'll just put a placeholder one for now. And once we submitted the form, and then we can refresh. And at the bottom of our list, we should see it. I pressed the submit button twice, so that's why it comes up twice. Yeah, and here's our item. It has the same functionality as all the other items in the list. Okay, so that was our app. One thing I want to mention about the app was it initially looked like a static HTML, but we decided to work on one of the stretch goals, which was to add design to it. And I think within the time frame we had, I think it turned out pretty great. And then the other thing is making it mobile responsive, which is also kind of something that became a pain point, was having to work on design and functionality as well as mobile responsiveness. But I think if you load it on the iPhone SE, it loads everything fine. If you load it on an iPad, same thing. Everything fits to the screen dimensions, the same on other types of devices such as a desktop. And yeah, so that's our app. Thank you. I'll pass it to Divya now to talk more about the backend, database testing, and functionality.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to be covering testing, mostly related to the backend. So we had two methods of going about this. One was using Postman. The other was more structured via Jest. So if we go to Postman over here, and I'll display her routes. All right, so these are all different express routes that query our database. Now, so if you send a GET request, we can see we get all the items from our database down here in our response body. Now, we can also we can create a new entry. So say for example purposes, copy this, put it in here, and we'll take this part out, and as well as the bottom part here. All right, so we can just put a portion of this, and let's leave that. So now if we send it, and we'll get a response back with the new array or item. Yeah, we can see it right here. Now we can also update it with a put request. So we just get the ID, which is 21, and we tack it on and say we want to change it to something totally different. We'll just say backpack, something generic. We can send it, and we can get a response back. We can see the item with ID 21 is now changed to backpack. Now we can also send a delete request. We can keep the ID and send it. We get a response back with the entire all the entries from the database, and we can see that particular entry is now gone. All right. Now we, like I said, we also use Jest for more structured testing. We tested mostly, well, pretty much all our backend and a portion of our front end React components. The reason we didn't test all our component is it was more involved than we first imagined, and it was a bit out of our depth. So if we had more time, we would cover it more, but this time we thought it best to allocate our time elsewhere. So in the terminal. So now we can run tests. I just run npm run test. and you can see we have all our tests pass here. Now, the benefit of testing like this is that we can differentiate different parts of our code, or compartmentalize, I can say. So that way we know what part of it works and what part of it might be problematic. So say, for example, we didn't have any of these testing methods in place. We just had our front end, back end, and whatever info we submit at the front end we didn't end up quite receiving what we intended to receive or wanted to receive. Now, there's a whole lot of ambiguity of where it could be, but if we test our back end, we know that that is not the problem and it's something in the front end, so we can just look at that, which saves time, effort, and energy, and we can allocate that elsewhere as need be. So now I'll pass it off to Eden. Thank you.
All right, hello, I'm Eden, and I'll cover our project management. When planning for the project, we were successful in sharing our input when creating the wireframes, creating the Git project board, and splitting the tiers into branches. When it came to actually working on the project, before merging to the main branch, we always tested together to make sure everything worked for each of us, as we had a few instances where the code worked on some of our systems and not on others. Taking this approach let us troubleshoot together. For commits, we made a branch for each of the 4 tiers and had multiple commits per branch. We had different comments for every commit, so we knew what was changing every time. And like I mentioned before, we always tested our changes together to make sure everything was working before moving forward to make more changes. One key learning moment was learning about branches, as it was a fresh concept for most of us. This also ties into what we would do differently next time, and that would be working on separate branches at the same time to be more efficient instead of waiting for each branch to be merged first. Working on different branches would have allowed us to work on our own tasks and get them done at the same time. And that's all from us. Thank you for your time.